All right. So, Alan, what do you think about that quote there from Winston Churchill? Tell me what you think.
Well, it comes from one side saying, "Oh yeah, plans are worthless." You try to have plans, and plans, as they say, the best plans don't survive the first attack.
Right.
But then he said, "Planning is everything." And you told me about a general who liked to he wanted all of his men to take care of every minute detail down to the air and the tires. And if the Russians had had such a general on their side, they might have had more success in their latest conquest.
Okay. Good, good stuff here. Well, good morning to everyone. Thank you for those of you that are here joining us live, and we always record this. Those of you that are in different time zones or different places on the planet, or have other obligations that you have to be with at this particular time zone, I keep having different folks call me or send me texts and say, "Steve, would you move the time to this because it'd be more convenient to me?" I'm like, there's so many people on the planet. There's so many people that want to make a difference in their life, and obviously, you can't be the perfect place for everyone. So you have to just pick a spot and say, here's where we go. And that's why, of course, I do the recording so that all of you that can't be here live still get a chance to join with us in Memorex. I think wasn't that the old term, Jim? Didn't that, the term that they used to use? It's live or Memorex. And I could use that because it kind of dates us a little bit sometimes because we're like my kids or my grandson now. I don't even think Memorex exists anymore, does it? The Memorex, remember the cassette tapes, reel to reel? That stuff doesn't exist anymore. But here's the idea. Let's go back to this point here and the whole idea of what we do here at Better Each Day. The underlying foundation of it is a system that I created over 30 years of my life. It's called Rubicon, okay? And Rubicon, without going into all the details of where it came from and the Red River where Caesar crossed it, it's more of an idea of it's a point of no return, okay? Rubicon is once you gain new ways of thinking, new ways of impacting your life, then you don't have to go back to the old ways that weren't serving you well. So this is a way of going to the point of no return and going beyond to be that better version of yourself. So the place I wanted to start today with the first part of our three-part masterclass is when you talk about plans are worthless, but planning is everything. And the first time I read this, because I've read a ton of stuff from Churchill, here was a man that was prime minister of Britain while they were absolutely getting decimated by by Hitler, right? This is World War II. Good morning, Jack. Good to see you, my friend. So they were actually getting their tail handed to them in a big way. And they were very concerned because France had already been taken over, many of the other places, Austria had been taken over, Poland had been attacked right out of the box. And, then they were headed toward Russia. And right across the English Channel, they were bombing England on a day by day basis. And that's why everybody was going into the subways. And basically, those are bomb shelters. And at that particular point, before the U.S. entered the war, to add, more horsepower to the resistance, Hitler was just bouncing through everything, just rolling right through it. Okay, the Blitzkrieg that rolled right into France and was taken. Hey, Tony, good to see you. So you have to think about the attitude of this man in the middle of that scenario. I wanted to give you that little bit of a backdrop. Okay, he's in an environment where not only is he losing, but his country is losing, and they're not just losing like the value of the sterling versus whatever the Deutschmark. Okay, back then he wasn't losing like that. They were losing lives of soldiers and airmen and sailors every single day because their planes, their ships, their boats, the German wolf pack was knocking everything out that was on water. What was the name of was it the Messerschmitts? I think was the actual plane that the Germans had. They were outrunning everything that the Brits had. So here's the man that's the leader of a nation that's being destroyed and decimated and pummeled every day by bombing attacks, strafing runs, and V 2 rockets. And he makes this statement during the middle of that: plans are worthless. Well, if plans are worthless, why don't we just all give up and quit, right? If you just listen to the first part of that, plans are worthless. Well, why are we planning? But then he makes the second part of the statement. But planning is everything. And to your statement, Alan, you talked about the idea of doing all those little things, the little things that we many times disregard as insignificant or lower level or doesn't really matter so much. But if you look at anyone that comes from a military environment, and I'll reach over here to Jack to get a confirmation here in a second, the very first things they start doing when they're in boot are what? Are they taking them out there to take a 50 caliber Barrett and fire 1,700 yards to hit a target? No, that's sniper school. That's way down the road. Well, what do they teach them? Basic, fundamental, square your operation away every day, footlocker squared away, bunk squared away, uniform squared away, weapon squared away. And then you perform in an orderly fashion. You move on a mission, you be on purpose. Does that sound pretty much right, Jack?
Yes, sir.
And what does that produce, Jack? Since I've never actually served, you have. What does that beginning with that basic fundamental, what does that produce through the entire ranks of a military service?
Discipline.
Discipline, okay. And in your opinion, you spent 25 years in the Air Force, am I right?
27.
27, okay. Yeah, so definitely tenured. What does that produce, that discipline over investing a lifetime to serve? How do you see it affect everyone from the guy rolling in to to boot that doesn't know what to do or how to do it, all the way up to I would say you've got individuals that are so highly skilled in the Air Force at every different level. But I had a friend of mine that was a PJ, and those guys are going in what 3-4 man teams to rescue pilots behind enemy lines. Is that pretty right?
Yeah.
So those are the special forces, if I'm right, of the Air Force.
Yes. PJs.
So when PJs drop in there, they don't train to do anything that's behind the lines, our side, or even at the lines. They're always on the other side of the lines, usually being dropped into a combat zone to do what? To rescue one of our pilots that got shot down somehow. So talk about going into harm's way. That's what you're planning for, okay? So if the plan that they give those PJs when they're rolling out there to pop off that tarmac and they're jumping in the back of whatever helo that's going to put them inside of their environment, what is going to happen in their mindset if you tell them plans are worthless?
They're going to have a plan B and a plan C.
Right. And why?
Because they're going to make sure that all their objectives is met, because when they're going after a down pilot, their main objective is to get that pilot back alive if they can, because one, the time and money that was spent on those pilots being trained, because it's years and years and years. And it's like just like for me, since I was in an F-16 unit, and those pilots from initial training just to get to F-16 school is $2 million is what it takes to train a pilot. Wow. Just to get through undergraduate pilot training. Sure. And then when they advance in their career, it's like these guys, so they sign up for 8 and 10 year tours. If they sign up, minimum is 8 years. So when they come up on their 8 years, their re-enlistment bonuses are anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 to re-enlist.
Sure.
Because the government wants to keep them because of all the money that they've invested in them and their training, and most of them stay.
Yeah. So going back to your perspective, they have a plan A, and the plan A is they roll in there with a helo. The pilot isn't injured. He's sitting at a rendezvous point. They fast rope out of the side of the chopper. Pilot's all good. Grab whatever they need off of the ejection seat if that's still intact. And chopper lands. No hot LZ. Everybody jumps back in the rig, and boom.
Actually, at that point, the pilot's a long ways away from the ejection seat, because their extraction point is going to be, they'll give them, an extraction point. Okay. So, okay, like the movie Behind Enemy Lines, that's, based on a real story. And, those pilots that SEER training is very intense. And talking with the pilots that I know, they said, you know, if they're caught, I mean, they know that there's a possibility that they're going to be killed. So,
Sure.
like O'Grady, when he was shot down in over Bosnia,
Sure.
one of the pilots that I know, he flies for Southwest now, retired F-16 pilot. He was in that unit with O'Grady,
Mhm.
and he was telling us that O'Grady was very cocky. He didn't fly procedures, and that's why he got shot down.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah. So tell everybody, use a term here that if you're not familiar with military lingo, use a SEER. Use that language. Tell me what SEER is, so everyone here that's not military. What does that mean?
It's survive, evade, something, something. I don't remember what it is, but
Survive.
it's their training that they go through to, you know, be able to survive and evade if they get shot down and not get caught. And you know, at least O'Grady did pay attention in that training,
Yeah.
you know, because he survived and was picked up.
Sure. So when you have that survival, evade, resist,
Resistance.
and escape, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a training, but here's the most important thing of the guys that I know that have been through SEER school, is it's a mentality. It's a way of having mental toughness. And I'm going to keep bringing this back around to our concept here. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. So it is the mental toughness and how I want us to understand this morning for our concept here of prepping the objective of how do we become better each day. And that is, you have to have a plan. It is in the planning that is everything. When you do your planning, when you're using your compass, which we'll start here in another 15 minutes, okay? We talk about our compass and we talk about how are we planning our day and our week and our month and our year and our decade and our life. Why? Is it going to work like this? No, it's not going to work exactly like that. But if you don't do the planning, your life will be like most other people that walk around on the planet right now. How would we describe that? In nice terms. Well, how do we say other people's lives function? With discipline? No. You're saying no, Linda. What do you
Nope.
think? Tony, you're a captain in Dallas. You handle very high-end traumatic situations. Tell us, everybody, a little bit about what you do. I'm calling you out here a little bit. I'm sorry about that, but I'm very proud of what you do. So I'd love to give you a little nod here this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So, captain in the fire department. So I'm responsible for everyone at the station on all shifts at my station,
Right.
ultimately. But when it's time for a fire or even just a medical call, the ultimate goal is to make sure that everybody stays safe and we can get back to the station in one piece.
Exactly. So you deal with a lot of, how many calls a day do you guys roll out to?
Our average is about 10,
Wow.
and that's actually on the slow side.
Oh my God. So you and your team are being hurled into 10 different or more traumatic situations where it's either life or death or something's on fire.
Ultimately, but yet most of our calls are the generic, oh, this has been going on for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So they're just looking for, we're the, what we call the street gutter doctor.
Ah, right. Okay. Right.
It's like, yeah, they just need a doctor that they think we know more than they do.
Right.
We're the answer.
So when you guys roll out there, and I don't know the difference, I'm going from TV. Okay. So you correct me where I'm wrong. Is 5 alarm, is that the worst version of a fire?
For us, we have a 6 alarm.
Okay.
6 is the highest for us.
So take us back to a time where you rolled up, you're in charge. People are waiting for you to give them direction. And there is a 5 alarm, 6 alarm fire going on. People's lives are in danger, high threat level. What happens with your first plan, and does it always come out right?
Oh, well, good gosh. It wasn't even that big of an alarm, but the first plan in my head when we pulled up at the scene,
Mhm.
pulling up to a 3-story apartment complex, and I know the complex. We think we see smoke and it's midnight. We
Right.
see smoke and think it's coming from one of the rear buildings of the complex that's on a downhill slope.
Sure.
So we immediately go around to the back side of the complex and we stop once we see the fire. And we all realize that we are now, because we went behind the complex, we're now in a very, very, very bad spot that we're not going to be able to do anything.
Oh, okay.
Because it was actually the very first building just on the back side, on the second floor, third floor, already going all the way to the roof.
Right.
So I know the first thoughts through my head were, this plan's not going to work, doing that's not going to work, and that's not going to work. And that all happened within, good gosh, 3 seconds.
Sure.
And it was like, okay, next, well, let me go stop everybody else who's following us before they get back here.
Sure.
That's the biggest thing, was just telling the other crews, it's like, it's crucial for us to set up in the right spots in case we have to go in a defensive mode where we're
Sure.
not entering the building and we're trying to put it out from the ladder trucks.
Right.
So next goal for me was just, you guys
Sure.
get water on it however you can from right here.
Right.
And I'm going to go get the trucks and set up everything else while I'm waiting on the battalion chief to show up.
There you go.
But it was a big cluster.
Yes.
It's always a big cluster right off the bat.
And the thing is here's the deal. When life hands us these situations, I mean, you work in a high stress environment that most of us can't imagine on a daily basis. But I'm going back to the original concept that we started first thing this morning with, is plans are worthless, but planning is everything. So I'm going to use, Tony, your perspective here for a second. The plan that you had made is based on a visual recognition of the smoke. You guys thought you would roll around behind it and be a good position. You got there and found out, uh-oh, we're actually now in the worst position. Let's make sure that the rest of the crews don't roll back here with us. Let's get them in a better position. So you're automatically thinking, what is the next thing, instead of sitting there going, oh my gosh, we made a bad move. Let's feel sorry for all of us. Let's have a self-pity. I'm giving that correlation because that's how too many of us think about life. Things mess up. Things go wrong. That is what life is about. All of our perfect perspectives, all of our planning that we thought were, all our plans of how we thought it was going to happen, generally don't come out like that. But here's the value of what Prime Minister Churchill was giving to us in the middle of having his country bombed, seeing his fellow countrymen, seeing his citizens, young men, women, old, everybody, dying right in front of him. And instead of deciding to surrender like some of the other countries in Europe had, and they just gave up to the Blitzkrieg, gave up to Hitler, he said, no, we will continue to fight. How did he find that strength, and where did it come from? Because the plan that they first had of defending themselves wasn't working. So it was the planning process of putting the time and the effort in to build out your outcome, to build out where you wanted to go, to already have your principles built on the fact that in his case, he was not going to surrender to Nazism. He was not going to allow his people to be ruled by an insane dictator. So to the last man, they were going to fight for what? For a principle that was their overarching guidance, called freedom, that came through democracy. If you don't know what you are fighting for, if you don't know what you are living for, if you don't know why you believe what you believe, then you're not going to get up every morning and do your drills. I don't do drills. I'm not in the military. What are you talking about? Okay, I use that term because I came up around that. Okay, every morning you have to prep the objective. You have to prepare to engage. And you say, Steve, well, we live in America. We haven't had anybody attack our borders in a couple centuries. What are you talking about, Steve? The enemy is not something physical. The enemy is mediocrity. The enemy is being tired, like I wake up many mornings knowing I have a very full day, and looking at my routine and going, I don't want to do that today. I don't want to meditate. I don't want to do my Wim Hof breathing. I don't want to go out and do deadlifts or pull-ups or carry a sand sack up the side of the hill. I don't want to. It's cold. I want to go back to bed. How many of you have that? And you feel that. And you're like, I'm going to hit the snooze button one more time, and 5 more times, and 10 more times, okay? Until you make yourself so miserable, right? So how do you alter your course from how mediocrity is whispering in the back of your ear? It's okay. It's cold outside today. Steve, you've worked really hard this week. I mean, my gosh, how many hours did you put in yesterday and the day before and the day before? You don't even know what day it is, dude. Chill out, man. Stand down. And every single day, you have to come back to that engagement, to that battle line. And you have to decide something. You have to decide whether the objective that you have is worth you doing the engagement. Whether it's worth you knowing that you're going to go into the day. Do you want to be more prepared, more ready, more balanced, starting off with the right discipline? Or do you want to wing it like everybody else usually does, getting up late, rushing through preparation, or no preparation, grab a shower, grab something in their mouth, and run out the door, right? And then they get to the office, they get to the work, and what happens? Everything is like that snowball rolling downhill because they didn't begin right. How are they ever supposed to correct it and getting back into the right mindset that's going to create what? Correct performance. Does everybody understand that? It is
Yes.
a battle that we have to come up against every single day. Jack, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna bounce off of what Tony was saying. Going into these things, it's really situational awareness. You have to be, you know, aware of what's going on around you, and that's one of the things that's being in the military that I've learned a long time ago, because they taught us that everyday American life doesn't do that. And just like you're saying, well, my new job, I just finished my second week at my new job. It's air medevac, and even though I'm not on the line, I still deal with the pilots and the nurses. I talk with them because of I have to know the status of the aircraft. I mean, we have 18 aircraft in our fleet, and they're saying it's going to grow to 40 this year.
Wow.
And we're in multiple states. So I have to know and be aware of what's going on, because since I'm the quality manager over all aircraft, I have to know the situation of each aircraft and stay on top of it all. And that's just it. It's just situational awareness. And I look at everyday people, and I'm not saying this, to be rude or anything, but I think, just the everyday American, their comfort in their life. So they just go on and do the same mundane stuff, to where people like us, we know what's going on, and we are aware of our surroundings. Like my director, he lives in North Carolina, and he was out last week. He's a retired chief out of the Air Force, and he and I were talking about everything that's going on in the world with our jobs, everything. And one of the topics that we talked about several times was, well, if World War III breaks out, what are we going to do? Well, we both have served multiple tours overseas. Our objective is to stay here and fight on our soil when all this stuff breaks out, because we're not going to go there to fight for somebody else's land when we're going to fight for our own land now.
I understand. So, hey, let's see, got a little bit of kickback here. Let me see. Who's got some background noise? Might be me. Let's see. Okay, there it is. Okay, so we've heard a couple different perspectives. And Jack and Tony, thank you for chipping in here. Alan, thank you for your first comments coming right off the bat about this perspective. Now, how do we take that and apply it to our lives? Okay, if now you understand my paradigm, and my paradigm came from someone that was in the military, someone that was Marine, recon trained on the DMZ in Vietnam. So I grew up with 17 years of boot camp. So the idea of discipline is something that comes to me naturally. It was, as he said, it was put into my DNA by his boot to my ass. Okay, so forgive my French this morning, but boot to ass is a military term that basically means if you're not motivated, I will give you the motivation. Okay, it will be my boot to your hind
Oh,
quarters. My point is if that's not something that you grew up with, then you have to figure out, how do I instill this discipline? How do I begin every morning with a process? Okay, so we've got a few more minutes here. I'm going to share something with you, and some of you may already have this, but if you look in the chat, um, I have already given you the link, of course, that we're going to start here in about 2 minutes. I've also given you the link to the compass, because that's the next event that we do, because we always do 3 30-minute segments. If you can stay and join us again, great. We're going to focus on the compass next and how that's working for you. And I want to get some of your feedback. But I'm going to give you something that I've shared with the Better Each Day online group in Facebook. And this is called Prepping the Objective. Now, this is mine. This is what I use every day. I'm not telling you you have to use this, but if you don't have one, then use mine until you build your own. And you're saying, Steve, okay, this is called Prepping the Objective. I thought we were here to talk about gratitude. Yes, gratitude is usually what we focus on the first thing in this particular segment. My focus this morning was, with everything going on with Ukraine, just the mindset, what we've gone through in the last 2 years of COVID, is how do we keep staying on discipline? Where gratitude, yes, absolutely. Every day when you get with your group of individuals, you begin with gratitude. That gratitude boosts your focus, boosts your mental focus, and therefore boosts your productivity by 31%. When you're focused in the moment, not what didn't go wrong yesterday, last week, last year, last decade, and you're not worried about, oh my God, what's going to happen in the future, because we can't predict it. So why don't we take a few minutes, stay in the moment, and be grateful, not just for what is currently happening in our life, for the people in our life, finding the good things to be grateful for. It changes how these neurons are popping in our head, and it makes us better able to perform. When we can perform better, what does that mean? We are becoming better each day. That's the whole concept that I share every Saturday with you, is what can we do to make ourselves the better version of ourselves by that little increment every single day, every single week, every single month. And what's going to happen if we constantly focus is a thing called the compounding effect. If you haven't read Darren Hardy's book called The Compounding Effect, add it to your list. It's one of those things you've got to have in there. There's some really great quotes in there, but the really idea is where you're at right now is the compounding culmination of all the little things that have happened over time. Whether you have allowed them, acquiesced to them, settled for them, or they've happened to you. It's still the compounding effect of all those. Now, if you understand that, what does the future hold for you? The future is what you are doing now to that future point of those compounding events. Can you make an effort to make those events function with better outcomes if you have discipline, if you have a focus to better your day, to better your mind, to focus on being grateful, to not just focus on being grateful and what you're grateful for right now, but if you follow our other concept that we talked about last week, is you go into that future version of yourself 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, and you set down in that future version of yourself and you activate all of the senses. So in my case last week, I was sitting on a patio of a home that I will have in the future. And I was sitting there with that big fire pit in the morning, having coffee, listening to the crackle of the fire, smelling the smoke and the wood burning and all that kind of stuff, listening to the atmosphere of the environment around me with a trickling brook running right next to my patio deck, whatever you want to call it. You follow me? Feeling the coolness of the morning air, tasting the coffee that I'm sipping on, right? In all of those events that I'm showing you, if you can activate all 5 senses, the more you activate and the more you set down in yourself, then you use Dr. Dispenza's perspective as you give thanks for that event. And that magnetizes that event in the future for you to move right to it. Isn't that cool?
Amazing.
It's cool. And you got to try it. If you haven't tried it, here's the deal. Like we talk about all the time, it's your imagination determines everything. Your imagination interprets where you're at in your present moment. So if your imagination is determining your present moment, your imagination is also what makes you feel sad or regretful about things in the past. It also is things that make you feel fearful about things in the future. So if everything engines through the imagination, then that means, well, wait a second, I'm already really good at running this imagination, this movie theater in my mind. What if I decided to stop using it for negative and started using it for creating a future that I'm excited about each day? Does everybody get that?
Yes.
Good, makes sense? Okay. All right. So the prepping the objective link that I put down there, that's just something I begin with every day. I don't use everything in there. That would take me an hour to do. I use bits and pieces of it, but I keep it in a playlist so that I can decide which ones, like I might make a coffee in the morning, I kick on the first one that's focused on gratitude frequency at 432 megahertz. I'm listening to that, prepping my mind while I'm doing things that I can't focus on yet. I'm just using this as background. Then as I go in, I do my Wim Hof breathing. It takes me 11 minutes, go through 3 cycles. That exercises my lungs, focuses my mind, calms my whatever mindset. Then I go into other things, whether I'm going to do the 6-phase meditation with Vishen, or I do the gratitude of the future with Dr. Joe Dispenza, or I do I am enough affirmations with Marissa Peer.
Marissa Peer.
All of those are amazing individuals. So I'm just saying, use mine. I'm just giving it to you until you find yours. When you find yours, build your own on YouTube, okay? And then use that to run through the procedure, okay? So we're 4 minutes over time. I'm sorry. Let's jump off this, and then I'll see you back on here in 60 seconds, okay?